Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk to you about steps and stair nosings. What it does, it's aesthetically pleasing, and on top of that it takes the brunt of the abuse as you're walking up the steps. That's where most of your footfall is going to be. Most people don't walk on the back side of the steps, most people walk on the front side of the steps. So when it comes to steps, typically you've got a few different varieties. Right here we've got one side that's open, okay? Typically what you see in a residential application is fully enclosed on both sides. Now fully enclosed on both sides is going to be a little bit easier of an install per se when it comes to cutting the nosings and the trims as it is compared to an open side step like this. Regardless of what you're doing, you just want to make sure that everything you cut is going to be sizably cut perfect. You don't want any gaps. You don't want to take for granted that your stringer materials are square and go ahead and put your material on the saw, cut it at a straight 90-degree angle and think it's going to fit. Stringers can bow in, they can bow out, they can have a curve to them, so you want to make sure that when you cut your material it's cut fit and it's cut straight and it's cut tight. Okay, so to make sure that the steps are square and the stringers are square, we just want to throw a check on it. As you can tell here, I've got my sample piece. This is the overlap nosing. You can see you've got a ridge here and then you've got your overlap area. This ridge is exactly what's going to be sitting along your front ridge of your step. So if this is not square with the stringer, when you go ahead and put your piece on, it might not have a good cut on it. So what you want to do is you just want to check. So I've got it sitting nice and straight along my front step, and I've got a nice even edge along my stringer too, which is good. Now when it comes to an open set of steps, you can also check your outside corner too. When you go ahead and install your piece and then you've got your side mount, your side panel, it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% square or sitting even up against that edge underneath, because this side over here typically isn't going to be traveled on, it's not going to be walked on, it's going to be protected by the handrail. So if you need to make an adjustment on your angle, on your side piece is where you're going to want to do it. So we've got a nice square edge. Now let's say we didn't have a nice square edge. How are we going to correct that? Basically, we're going to take out our angle finder again and we're going to see where we sit. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and line it up on the front side. We're going to tighten it up and we're going to get our angle. When you go ahead and cut your pieces, you're going to take this angle and transfer it onto your saw. So again, every side is cut equally. So I kind of went ahead and got these pieces ready to go. With it being an overlap, it really doesn't matter if you've got your tongue sticking out or if you've got the groove sticking out, and it really doesn't matter if it's cut on the side too, because it's an overlap. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pieces. We've already measured. I've already set my depth as far as where I need to be, and I've cut my pieces. Now when it comes to whether it be laminate or hardwood flooring on a step, you don't have a wide open area like you do with a floor, so your expansion and contraction really isn't going to matter as much. In fact, it's probably going to hardly expand whatsoever. So, but you want a good tight fit. So we're going to put our full piece up front and our cut piece in the back. We're going to make sure that we got a nice tight fit. We're tight up against the wall. Now when it comes to staircases, like I said about the sides and the stringers, you also don't want to take for granted the depth. For the most part, they're always going to be the same. But if you're not going to have a riser piece or a trim piece or anything on the side and you want a nice tight fit, you want to make sure that you measure every stair individually and cut each piece individually, because they might not always be 100% true. Alright, so I've gone ahead and cut my pieces. You can see I'm fitting tight on both sides. I got my piece sitting nice and flat here, and I've got my other side piece ready to be installed. And I've got a real nice beveled edge. Okay? So there's my finished edge. Now I'm going to show you how to install them. When we install these nosings, you're going to see that they're fairly thick. Now this is a hard wood, so you can use an air nailer. I prefer not to, because for the most part, most air nailers and brad nails are not going to go through a wood this thick and this hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the drill and finish nail technique, and on top of that we're going to apply some adhesive too to help with that bond. As you know, when it comes to a finishing nail, you want to make sure that you use a drill bit just a little bit smaller than a nail. You don't want to use one too small, because then your nails won't be able to go through in a nice even smoothing flow. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the tape in place for when we go ahead and hammer the material in too. So what I want to do, clean this off. I want to get rid of any dust and debris, and we're going to go ahead and apply some adhesive. Now some guys prefer to actually spread the adhesive. You can go ahead and do that if you want. I'm just going to go ahead and put a couple of beads. All this is just to kind of help hold the material in place, and it'll give it that extra bonding capacity. Make sure you get some good coverage, press it in there, nice and tight. Now I'm going to go ahead and use a 2-inch nail, finishing nail. I pre-drilled for the hole just a little bit bigger, and let's get these sunk in here and held in place. Before we go ahead and take that tape off, let's go ahead and now we're going to go ahead and do the install with our reducer, our overlap reducer. We kind of want to just line it up to where it's going to go a little bit, kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. Okay, so there we go. Now if you want to, kind of mark it a little bit, just so you know where it needs to go. Now when it comes to nailing, you don't want to nail through the thinner part, okay? You don't want to nail through here into the wood. We want to get a nice bite. You can see the lip here, which represents where the front of your step is, or the front of your tread. And then you've got this area here to nail through. So you want to go ahead and make sure you get it right through the center. So as far as adhering, again, we want to make sure that we don't get it too close to the edge so it's oozing out the bottom. We want to make sure that we've got it on the flat spot. See, I'm on my lines here. I'm right where I want to be. Let's set some nails. Put those counters on. All right, there we go. So now we've got a nice tight nosing, well bonded. We've got a good solid step, and we're ready to fine tune it with some wood putty. So when it comes to the wood putty, there's a couple of different types out there. You've got the paste. Some people prefer to use the pens. It actually comes looks like a marker that you can actually unwrap it, and you get more and more material. I like to use the wood putty itself. Now you can tell with my wood that I'm installing today, we've kind of got some multi-colors with grain, so you might have to maybe get a couple of different colors. All right, so now we've given that a few minutes. We're going to go ahead and clean up the rest of it. Okay, just want to wipe up the excess. You don't want to pull the material out of the hole, but you just obviously want to clean up what's around it. There you go. You've got a finished product. You've got a solid step and a solid nosing. Just make sure that you use enough adhesive on that leading edge, and use a couple more nails if need be. Just don't get the nails too close to the edge because you don't want to split the wood. But you definitely, because of this nosing takes the brunt of the force, you want to make sure it's well adhered and very level and sits flat. Thank you very much, and good luck on your next project.